Google just gutted its own safety system and called it an upgrade. That is not a talking point. That is what happened in the May 2025 Gemini 2.5 Pro update. And the fact that nobody with a platform is saying it plainly tells you everything about how captured this industry is. Google is the villain here, but not for the reason you think. The problem is not that they loosened content filters. The problem is that they did it while still running a public campaign about responsible AI. They are funding safety institutes. They are publishing alignment papers. They are sending executives to Senate hearings to talk about how seriously they take this. And then, in a model update changelog buried in their developer docs, they appear to have rolled back refusal behaviors across multiple prompt categories that were locked down just 2 months ago. That is not innovation. In my analysis, that is a calculated bait and switch designed to eat market share from OpenAI and Anthropic while maintaining plausible deniability on safety. Let me show you the proof. Point 1. The RLHF policy shift. Gemini 2.5 Pro's reinforcement learning from human feedback pipeline, the core mechanism that teaches the model what to refuse, appears to have been retrained with significantly more permissive reward signals. Independent researchers testing the May update have documented a 40% drop in refusal rates on adversarial prompt benchmarks compared to the March build. 40%. That is not a calibration tweak. That is a policy decision. The real-world consequence is that developers building retrieval augmented generation systems on top of Gemini's API are now inheriting a model with a fundamentally different safety profile than the one they originally integrated. Their RAG pipelines were architected around a set of behavioral assumptions that Google just invalidated overnight, with no migration guide and no deprecation warning. Point 2. The inference cost play. Google cut Gemini 2.5 Pro pricing by another 15% in the same update. Cheaper inference plus fewer refusals equals higher throughput for paying customers. Every refused prompt is a wasted API call that a developer pays for in latency and in dollars. By reducing refusals, Google effectively made the model more cost-efficient without touching the architecture. It appears this is not a safety decision. It is a pricing decision wearing a safety mask. The downstream effect is that startups choosing between Claude, GPT, and Gemini now have a direct financial incentive to pick the model that says yes more often. That is a race to the bottom, and Google fired the starting gun. Point 3. The benchmarking contradiction. Google's own model safety evaluation report, published in April, gave Gemini 2.5 Pro top marks on harmlessness metrics. 1 month later, they ship an update that observably degrades those same metrics. Either the April benchmarks were misleading, or the May update was not evaluated against them before deployment. Both options are damning. Fine-tuning a model for safety, and then loosening that fine-tuning in production, means the safety benchmarks are decorative. They exist for press releases and regulatory theater, not for actual governance of what the model does in the wild. If you are watching this and thinking that someone should be saying this louder, subscribe. Because we are going to keep pulling this thread whether Google likes it or not. Now here is the counter-argument, and it is a real one. Some developers are celebrating this update. They argue that overly aggressive refusals were crippling legitimate use cases, that Gemini was unusable for creative writing, medical research summarization, and security testing, because the model treated every edge case like a threat. And they are right. Over-refusal is a real problem. It degrades user trust and pushes people toward unaligned open-weight models with zero guardrails. But here is why that argument does not save Google. The fix for over-refusal is granular, category-level policy controls exposed to the developer, not a blanket loosening of the base model's reward signal. What Google did is the equivalent of a car manufacturer removing the airbags because customers complained about the seatbelt being too tight. The solution to a calibration problem is better calibration, not less safety. And doing it quietly, in a changelog, while your CEO is on stage at I/O talking about building AI responsibly, that tells you where the real priorities are. So here is where we land. Google appears to be running two companies. One gives keynotes about safety. The other ship's model updates that systematically dismantle it. The evidence suggests that alignment, for Google, is a branding exercise, not an engineering commitment. And every other frontier lab is watching this and doing the math on how much safety they can cut before someone notices. So I need you to answer this honestly. Should AI labs be allowed to roll back safety behaviors in production models without independent third-party audit, or is self-governance working just fine?